Next item, Mr. McEwen, Parks and Rec update.
Yeah, I'm beginning to get a lot of questions and people inquiring about performing or participating in the festival, and actually I would like the board's either approval or disapproval of running the festival this year. You know, it's a lot of, it's a pretty good expense. Obviously, it's a very successful event, very well received in the whole area. I believe very good for the public relations, public image of Sycamore Township. But you guys are the boss, so I need your approval. So any questions?
Here's what I'd like to see happen. I'd like to put a little pause on this, and I'd like to be, so that we all are better informed. Like if you can give us a list of the artists that we can pick from, and what their current asking price is, and then also come up with a list of, a wide list of local talent that we could use. This way we can see where the money, because I'm sure a lot of these acts that we paid X amount for 5 years ago, 3 years ago, are now a little more. So if we could have that list to see, and then discuss it in another workshop meeting, and then probably very quickly.
Just to let you know, the board, any expense over $2,500, the board has to approve. So every year, whatever national act or local act that's over $2,500 is approved by the board of trustees.
What Mr. O'Barber is proposing is really not different from what we have asked for you to do in the past in regard to festivals, so I'm not sure that I would consider it a pause. I think it's a standard process for you to put together a list of in particular, national acts. I think this time we expanded out to some local acts as well. From my own personal standpoint, I think we should continue with the festival, but I think that the costs have been creeping up, and I think that we should take a look at this and set a cap on spending on it, perhaps maybe $100,000 cap. We've been up to like 125 in the last year or two. I think we need to maybe get it back to a lower number than that, because I do think that it's a good, successful, positive public event for our township, and compared to what other communities around us spend for similar types of events, Blue Ash and Montgomery in particular, this is not out of line at all for an event like this.
And Tom James presented at a meeting Thursday night what the graph that he has, how we've lost close to, well, we don't lose money.
We don't know. We don't lose.
We spend money that we spend is over $1 million, and maybe perhaps it could be better spent, and maybe we take an intermission, you know, for a year and sit back and reevaluate.
I would agree with Mr. Connor. I think it's a great event for our community. What did we budget for that?
You have $125,000 for festivals and events on your appropriations budget.
Okay. I think that if we compare it to other communities, again, that surround us, like Montgomery, they spend $100,000 on, nearly $100,000 on, what's their event? Bastille Day. It's a one-day event. In fact, I think it goes for about 5 hours.
Yeah.
Blue Ash spends $400,000 on a one-day event. This is and neither one of those, I shouldn't say that. Blue Ash is definitely not a family event. Blue Ash is an adult event. And Bastille Day is a little bit more of a family event. There are kids there. This is a 2-day event. Part of that cost is we subsidize the rides for the kids. It's been very successful. Great attendance by our residents. I would venture to say, and I cannot, somebody will challenge me on this, I'm sure, but I would venture to say, just from the people that I see and know there, that the percentage of residents is much higher at that event than it is at Blue Ash's event, which is almost a regional event today. Again, it's a family event, it is not it's just an adult event, it's a 2-day event versus everybody else's 1-day event, and I think we should, but what I think we really need to do is as Denny suggested, is control our costs, and part of our costs are directly related to the sponsorships that we get. And so we're gonna have to put an extra effort into sponsorships this year in an effort to offset our additional costs. So I'm not opposed to that. I think if, Mike, you could get us a list of both the national talent and the local talent, and, you know, instead of bringing in somebody that's costing a lot of dough, we're gonna probably have to bring in somebody that costs less, because we have to keep it within the budget we have. And I think last year, the year before, we went over the budget, and, I mean.
Yeah, we can reduce the, pardon me, the national acts. I mean, last year we had 2 big national acts, we can go to 1.
So let me just break down some of your expenses on the festival. So your talent and your direct related costs. And I did 17 and 18. To go back to 16 and 15, the numbers are a little bit different because the cost for talent literally doubled overnight because of the casino. So in 17, you spent $69,000 on the talent and their related costs. In 2018, last year, you spent $76,000, and that's local and national. You have a stage, rigging, and then talent-specific equipment that may require a certain backline, et cetera, et cetera. 2017, that was $30,000. 2018, that was $28,000. Now, you reduce your talent costs, you're going to reduce your backline and staging and rigging costs. You will have a finite staging cost just to set up your stage, but that's, you know, generally around what, $5,000 to $7,000. You spend in both years about $11,000 on promotion and advertising. In 17, you spent $16,000 in labor and related costs. That includes our maintenance crews, that includes the sheriffs, that includes the explorers, that includes any volunteer who you give free food to or festival bucks, etc. Last year that cost was $17,000. In 2017, you spent $14,000 in other entertainment. That's the rides, the clown. I think you did a couple other things for the kids. Last year, we only spent $11,750 because I think the rides reduced their costs. Then you have grounds, permits, equipment. Typically in 2017, it was $14,000. Last year it was $13,000. And finally, there's just that category where nothing doesn't make sense for what it is. In 2017, it was $4,000. Last year was $1,500 because we better allocated expenses. Your gross expense in 17 was $161,000. Last year was $160,000. Your net expense in 2017 was $127,000. That was at $33,000 in sponsorships and income. Last year you only had $27,000, almost $28,000 in income, and your net expense last year was $132,000. So clearly your biggest expense is the talent. If you cut down to one national act, some local acts, you're going to greatly reduce those costs. So.
Follow-up question.
Yes.
You said in the appropriations budget, has that been approved for 2019?
The appropriations, yes, that was approved back in 2018 at the end. The appropriations budget opens up spending for this year.
Okay,
There's a
I
department
missed
level
that.
budget behind it.
I thought it still had to be approved.
Well,
It does.
the event has to be approved.
That's just
The
saying,
event does.
that's a dollar amount.
And we've placed a dollar amount on it. It's
It
not.
doesn't mean you have to spend that.
Exactly. The money can be allocated other places if you choose not to do it. And any money you come up
Or
short
not
with in
spend
your
it.
budget, it just gets allocated elsewhere.
And a follow-up, a question for Mr. Miller. I used to run an event down in Cincinnati when I lived there, and we had a budget of around $40,000. Without the beer revenue, our event would not have been able to continue. We did not lose money. We hired local talent, which helped with the expenses a lot. But for Mr. Miller, why doesn't the township keep the beer revenue? Because that's how we were able to cover our event.
Well, they just never have, they don't keep any of the revenue from the vendors.
We have a vendor policy, I think we put in place a couple
Yeah.
of years ago, that specifically dictates
The cost or
Yeah.
whatever, how they're chosen.
Mr. Bickford, is that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a policy about the vendors. They pay a booth fee, and then they are bringing their, whatever they're bringing in, sellers, food, merchandise, whatever it may be.
And we don't treat the beer vendor any differently than we treat the food vendors or the rye vendors or
That's
any of
correct.
those people. We don't mix their money into
Right.
anything that we do. They pay us a fee to be there, and then they keep their money, they track their own money. We have no control over that whatsoever. And that's the way the festival has always been run. It's not like a church festival where all the money goes into a single pot and then the expenses are paid out of there. This is a community event where we invite vendors to come in, pay a fee to set up a booth at our event, and then the money is theirs.
And the beer vendor is also a major sponsor of the event as well.
Maybe we should take another look at that and change that policy. You know, everything's always evolving anyway, and if the township took over the beer revenue, seems to be a considerable amount of money, then that would change a lot of these numbers.
As a taxpayer and as a former event operator, I think that's a sound financial recommendation, Mr. LaRocca.
Do we have any information about losses or break even for Montgomery in their event and Blue Ash in their event? They were mentioned as two events. Do we
Well,
know?
Blue Ash spends between $300,000 and $400,000.
And those are net.
On their,
Those are net losses.
yeah, that's their net loss.
Well, loss is a
Their-
relative
their-
term
their
because
net
we lose
expense.
money plowing streets, we
Yeah.
lose money picking up leaves, we lose money everything we
No,
do.
I'm talking about an optional event, I think.
No,
I guess it would
I
be
get your
optional to
point.
pick up leaves and to plow streets too, I understand that. But this is like a one-time planned event and.
Yeah, it's no different than a concert in a park,
Right.
there's a cost to that, any event that's put on has some type of cost.
But-
Yeah, those were net numbers.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
hear that. And
I think Montgomery's is somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 that they output from them for Bastille Net.
And I will add this, that Brian Riblett, who's the administrator or the city manager in Montgomery, said, of all the events they have, this is the Bastille Day would be the very last one they would want to discontinue, because for that very reason, it's a family event. They come out and they're spending $100 grand for one day, so.
So is your direction to Mike to provide a list of bands, is that
Yes.
where you're
Yes.
working with him?
I think so. Mikey, the sooner you get that back to us, the better on that.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
Again, I would like to have, pause on it, not do it this year, but
You're saying not to the festival hall?
not do the festival. So that's my thought.
I'd like to see the list before I make a final call on that.
Okay, Mr. Kellums, Maintenance
Wait a
Department.
minute, just because there's opposition, why don't we have a vote to, at this point, continue with the festival with the direction, Mike, to get the band?
Okay, I'll make a motion that Mr. McEwen continue
Working on the festival.
preparation, planning, research for the 2019 festival.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Mr. Miller?
Mr. Wiedman? Aye. Mr. Connor?
Aye.
Mr. LaBarger?
No.